I was browsing Hacker News and one post really stood out to me. I was like, hey man, I'm not really looking out for a job here, but just because I really liked your post, I am reaching out. I am not actively looking out for jobs, but for you specifically, I would be very happy to join you guys. I guess the gist of it is, talk to people. If you want to get good at writing, the first thing is reading high quality stuff. And second thing is writing on your own. A lot of people don't really take effort. It's not like they are innately bad at it. It's just, yeah, people don't take the effort. I really don't care about the views. I care about expressing my thoughts and improving how I started freelancing in college for many. And I remember the first job I had, I was getting paid 10,000 rupees a month. Then I had a big decision on my hands, go with a stable big company and, the college placement route or make my own path. And I chose to make my own path. And people sort of feel intimidated or embarrassed. What is my manager gonna think tomorrow if maybe they're gonna think of me as greedy? No, no, man. This is a capitalistic society. If you don't ask for it, you're not gonna get it. If you are a good employee, if you do have the work, if you have something to show for it, absolutely go ahead and bypass that appraisal cycle. One tool that I really love and I don't think a lot of people know about is Anki. It basically allows you to remember anything by hacking into how the human brain works. As an example, I know the capital of every country in the world.
What's the
Anki,
capital of Zambia?
Zambia, Lukasa.
Wow.
What's the capital of Cameroon?
Cameroon, Yaoundé, right?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's crazy.
Can I speak about the current state of the industry, software industry? Keep working on yourself. Get ready for the opportunities, right? Get dressed, put on your tie, put on your suit, work on yourself. I know we are in a bus cycle and good things are hard to come by, but it's gonna flip around. The market is gonna pick back up again.
Welcome to Beyond the Brackets. I'm Pariti.
I am Nitesh, and today we are thrilled to have Saurabh Sikchi with us. Saurabh is a software
Hello.
developer at Open Regulatory, a small
Hello.
bootstrap startup that helps medical software startups solve regulatory problems. Welcome to the show,
Very happy to be here, Nitish and Faridi.
Saurabh.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I am really excited about this conversation because you're a Rails developer and I'm really into Rails. We're using it. And yeah, I'm personally invested in this one to learn about and share your amazing remote developer journey with people. So let's start with the first remote job that you ever had. So can you share how having like good connections with your coworker helped you get that job? Because I feel that is very cool.
Yeah. When you say first remote job, so that was Multiplier, which is a company which helps people employ across the borders. So working remotely is sort of like compulsory there because that's what they advocate their clients to do. And what happened was I had this really great rapport with one of my Singaporean colleagues from my first job out of college, and we used to work really well together. Even if I used to sit in the Indian office and she used to sit in the Singaporean office, but she was a product manager, I was a developer, and obviously a lot of our viewers know that developers and product managers work closely together. They have to, and we in particular like work really well together. And that's sort of the start of remote work going right for me. That even though it was an office job, I had very good rapport with people who were not in my office and who I had not met anytime, right? So that was awesome. When she left the company, she joined another company, and then she knew this person who knew this person who was starting a startup, right? That's how the world works. Somebody knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, and she really vouched for me. They were looking for engineers. She knew that I was like a risk-taking sort of person who would be open to joining an early stage startup, even though it may or may not work out. And she really vouched for my engineering skills. And introduced me to those people, right? They were not even that big of a name that you would hear them. They were based in Singapore. I was based in India. There's a geographical disconnect, and I probably wouldn't have heard of them till much later had it not been for my coworker Nitya. So yeah, that was a really great thing. She introduced us, vouched for me, and it kicked off the whole interview process, which of course went well, and it led me to my first remote job. Yeah. So
Sweet. Shout out to Nitya there.
yeah.
And you mentioned that she knew that you were risk taking. So I'm just curious, what did you do at your when you were working with Nitya that made her so confident in your risk taking abilities?
Honestly, my first job itself was a big risk. Like my whole career has been a story of, taking one risk after another, including my first job. I did my graduation from BITS Pilani Goa campus, and I had some pretty nice campus placement going for me. But I wanted to work with Rails. I wanted to work in a startup. I wanted to have an outsized impact of my work, which you don't usually have at a large company. So I was looking for off-campus placements as well, and I found this startup called Cardup who were willing to hire me. Then I had a big decision on my hands: go with a stable big company and the college placement route, or make my own path. And I chose to make my own path. I was like, yeah, this might be a little more risky, but it's more rewarding as well. So yeah, that's how they knew that I was a bit of a risk taker, and I decided to leave a stable big company and join a smaller startup. So yeah.
Can you also share how you got into Rails in college and why you wanted to get into startups so bad?
How I got into Rails is also an interesting story. A senior of mine, I was looking for money basically. It was like not really that deep. College is a time for a lot of people where they are financially stretched and money is not that much. I was looking to make money and I was looking out for things that can help me do that. I consulted a senior who himself, minted money by freelancing in Rails. I was really inspired by that. I was like, hey, I want to do that too. He said, yeah, just go learn Rails and sign up to Upwork, Guru.com, or whatever freelancing sites. But the first step is going to be learning a technology. I learned Rails. I went into freelancing. I made money. College was a fun time. And that's how I got into Rails. Money, motivation. Yeah, that's a pretty good
Really
Right.
motivator.
And like all the jobs that you've had throughout your career, have they been like have you always worked on Rails or have you used other technologies as well?
No, in the middle somewhere, I switched over to Java and Spring Boot because that's what Multiply was using, my second company. And I also hold the belief that if you are a strong programmer and your basics are sorted, you can really make it into any language that you want to pick up. Like the fundamentals sort of stay the same across the languages. So, but Rails is everything has its pros and cons, and Rails has definitely a lot of pros. But there was a stint of 2.5 years where I did not work on Rails. Yeah.
So I'm also curious, like what was the interview process at Multiplier like then? Since you weren't working with Rails and you had previous experience with Rails, right?
So Multipliers was not a Rails shop. We had a legacy application for Java Spring Boot. And honestly, like I mentioned, it was such an early stage startup. I remember the first time I connected with the founders, it was over a WhatsApp group chat. Um, So the interview process was kind of straightforward. They had a CTO, a CEO, and a chief of operations, a CO, like a president of sales, something like that. So I had a 1 hour call with every one of them, and then a very technical interview. It felt very casual, very non-formal, so to speak. And I was also gauging them because, again, if I am to join such an early stage company, like, it doesn't matter if they're taking me in or not. Like, I'm leaving a stable job here, so I gotta make sure that I'm going to work with smart people who are going to make sure this company stays alive. So the interview was really like both sides of the table were interviewing each other, that sort of thing. And again, it was very casual as well. Hope that answers your question. Yeah.
So it wasn't like technical at all. It
It
was just
was
a
one round was super technical with the
okay.
CTO. One round was casual with the CTO, and then with the CEO and chief product officer, it was casual. Yeah, like yeah.
Right. And the technical round were their Rails based questions or something that
No,
happens.
these were, yeah, like I remember one question was this very common question when you type google.com into the browser, what happens? Those sort of questions, more towards the fundamentals of how the web technologies work or how
Right.
programming works, those sort of. Yeah, because I had told them that the technology that you are going to use, I don't use that. I was using Ruby on Rails at Carda, and they were not. They were using Java Spring Boot. So I was open with them that hey, I don't know Java Spring Boot. I would rather you ask me general questions focusing on fundamentals, and they obliged.
Is there
Makes a lot of
also like,
sense.
is there anything that you did specifically for the interview prep as well? Like, did you, yeah, other than like Rails, of course.
For that specific interview, no, but like I have always kept studying. I have sort of done lead code on and off, especially when I'm looking to switch. I have stayed on top of tech news all the time, and that really helps with the interview. For that specific interview, maybe not, but it's a general practice of mine to keep abreast of tech news, keep on top of new technologies, keep learning new things in my domain because the domain of tech is changing so fast that you need to do that, and that really helps with the interviews. Yeah.
Right.
And then from there, so you went to your current role, open regulatory.
Yes, open regular.
Tell us how tell us how that happened.
Oh yeah, this was awesome really. I was not looking for a job switch. Multiplier was a pretty good employer, good enough, and I was browsing Hacker News, which is one of those tech sites I used to stay on top of, on top of tech news. And Hacker News has a community of really intelligent people. It's not like Reddit or, anything else out there. It's like filled with super intelligent people. And they have this monthly who is hiring thread. Again, I was browsing just out of curiosity, and one post really stood out to me. This guy's writing style and everything, it was like poetry. And I was like, hey man, I'm not really looking out for a job here, but just because I really liked your post, I'm reaching out. And that guy was Dr. Oliver Idle, who is my current boss. And they were a bootstrap startup. They didn't really have the money to hire me, sort of, so to speak. Like they had the money to hire one person and then they went with that other guy. But my interviews went.
Wanted to work with them, or what was your email like?
Yeah, it was. I did want to work with them. I was like, I am not actively looking out for jobs, but for you specifically, I would be very happy to join you guys. Like, I then checked out their company and everything. They look pretty damn awesome. And I was like, yeah, I would be open to working with you. And we had interviews which went super well. But then this other guy, his interviews went even better, mainly because he had some healthcare expertise, and I had been working in, fintech and global financial compliance, stuff like that. And I didn't really have anything healthcare related under my belt. His interviews went super well. They hired him. They did not have VC money, sort of a lot of money to hire two people. So I was like, yeah, that's fine. That's cool. That's all right. And I wish you the best of luck. Around 5 to 6 months later, the CEO reached out to me again. He said, hey, we still don't have money, but that's what's been going on. The interviews went pretty awesome. So just wanted to connect with you and see where you're going, what you're doing, and this is what we are doing. I replied to him. We had, technical back and forth like that. And around 2, 3 months later, their revenue picked up. They had money to hire me part time. And we initiated that conversation. We had a couple of more rounds of interviews, and I started working with them part time. Then a few months later, they made even more money. We made even more money. Now I'm working with them full time. So, yeah, I guess the gist of it is, talk to people.
That is a very great gist and a very good
Yeah.
advice. But like, have you ever thought about what impressed? What about you? What about your impressed doctor the most? Like, you weren't using Rails technically at your job at that
No.
time, so
Yeah,
this must have been like a little bit of a risk for them to hire you, and not look for
absolutely.
a person who is, been using Rails professionally for 3 years.
Absolutely. So I think a couple of things stood out to him, which he explicitly mentioned. One was my writing style. He himself is an amazing writer. I'm nowhere close to that. Like I said, his job post was really like poetry, and even the blogs that he writes for Open Regulatory are amazing. And internal posts, I know all of them. He's a very good writer, and he really liked how I wrote. So that was something that stood out to him. And if you're going to hire someone remotely, the majority of your conversations should happen over writing. I know there's going to be video calls and stuff, but in a healthy remote working environment, the major source of communication is going to be writing. Writing well is super important. That's what stood out to Dr. Oliver. That was one thing which he specifically mentioned. The second was, I guess, my technical grasp of things, right? Even if it was not Rails, but I think my fundamentals are sort of clear. So he liked that. He did mention that hey, even though you're not using Rails, but fundamentals are needed everywhere, and I feel like your fundamentals are clear. Those are the couple of things that I can remember off the top of my head, which he explicitly mentioned were a plus point going forward. Yeah.
And how did your writing become so good?
A lot of reading. I was an avid reader when I was young. Unfortunately, I have like now that I have grown old, my reading habit has sort of fallen off a little bit. I had a lot of time when I was younger, so a lot of reading, fiction, non-fiction. I remember when I was a child, I used to dedicate like 30 to 45 minutes every day to either Indian Express, which was my favorite. The quality of their English was amazing, or Times of India. Times of India was bad. Like don't read that. Read some better papers, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if they've improved, but when I was a young child, I really remember going after the Indian Express and really making it a point to spend 30 minutes with that paper. And of course, a lot of books, Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes, Enid Blyton, etc., etc. Then once I grew up, I have made it a point to improve my communication skills, be it during interviews, be it during writing. I also write a blog on my own, although I'm not as productive. So I have not written something for like the past 2, 3 months. Like I write one post in 2, 3 months, and I only write it when
That's still more
I'm
than
really.
most.
Yeah, that's still more than most, and I only write it when if I'm really enamored with some topic. So right now, I don't think I have anything compelling off the top of my head. But if you wanna get good at writing, the first thing is reading high quality stuff, right? Reading stuff like Indian Express or great English books. And second thing is writing on your own. Yeah, that would be my advice, and that's how I think. I still won't say I'm great at writing, but maybe better than like 90% of the people out there, which is not I'm not bragging. A lot of people don't
Yeah,
really take effort. It's not like they're innately bad at it, and even if they took effort, they wouldn't be able to do it. It's just, yeah, people don't take the effort, right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I agree. Love this. Now, I want to ask you. So, what has remote work enabled for you in your personal life?
Oh, that's a great point. So it has mainly enabled me to shift anywhere. For the last 1.5 years, I was living in Gurgaon, where we met. That was because people close to me, my friends and stuff, had jobs there. It allowed me to live close to them, right? I couldn't if my office was someplace else. It has allowed me to go and work from mountains. It has allowed me to go and work from other countries, work from great cafes, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the like
Absolutely.
amazing
Yeah.
part of working remotely that you're able to go where your
Yeah.
friends are.
Yeah. It has given me the freedom. It has given me the choice. It has given back the choice to me, right? Now where I go is my decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Love this. And are you able to, like, it's okay if you say no, but are you able to speak about your compensation journey all the way from when you started freelancing in
Sure.
college to now?
Sure. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So what do you want to know? I remember the
Just
first.
like your initial figures, and then maybe
Yeah.
just an overview of how it has looked like, maybe in terms of percentages or rough estimates.
Yeah, so I remember the way I told you, right? I started freelancing in college for money, and I remember the first job I had, the first time I made money, I was getting paid 10,000 rupees a month, and that seemed like so much money during college, which it is because you don't have to pay rent, you don't have to pay for food. It was like an insane amount of money. And by the time I was graduating college, I think I was making like 60, 70,000 a month at my last freelancing job.
You were already
When
making this money before you graduated college.
Before I graduated, yeah. Actually, this startup Cardup hired me straight. Like I hadn't even graduated by that point. They hired me during my last semester itself. So there I was making around 13.5 while I was in college. Once I left college and joined them in office, they sort of bumped my pay up out of the goodness of their heart or whatever. Maybe they really like the work that I do, that I did while I was in college. It went up to 15. And then I don't know, I have been sort of really lucky and it has been like a straight up graph. I got promoted to 19, then I left my job, joined a new job at Multiplier for 23, got promoted to 30, it went up to 40. Then I left Multiplier, joined Open Regulatory. That was part-time, right? So I sort of took a financial risk there and a financial bump because I like these guys so much that I wanted to work with them, even if that meant making a little less money. So that was 30. That was while I was working part time. And then obviously this year the company has made more money, so they have hired me full time. That means double the work, double the pay. So yeah,
This is amazing. This journey is
I've
in
been
itself so
really
inspiring.
lucky. Yeah, it's just been a constant graph of, upward trending graph. Maybe I've been lucky, maybe, but I have made sure that I put in the work behind it as well. And I have also asked for it. It's not like it has just been given to me. There have been points at my career where I have asked for more, right? Especially during job changes, even somewhere in between, I have asked, hey, when's the appraisal gonna be? And if it's not gonna be, then I'm not gonna work here anymore. I think it's been long overdue. So yeah, I have worked for it. I have asked for it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've been
So
doing like a lot of things really well. That is why I wouldn't call it luck.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
I'd
guess the
also
lucky part was I didn't get laid off. Yeah.
I'd like to ask you for some advice on, like, you mentioned compensation and like asking for a raise. So do you have any specific advice that people can follow about negotiation and like, yeah.
The greatest thing I see is people don't ask for it. Like, right? In a professional context, people feel like they are friends with their leadership. That's not really true. And even if you are friends, you're not gonna ruin it by making a professional decision to ask for it. The first step, however badly you ask, but the first step is really asking for it. And people sort of feel intimidated or embarrassed, or what is my manager gonna think tomorrow, if maybe they're gonna think of me as greedy. No, no, man. This is a capitalistic society. If you don't ask for it, you're not gonna get it. There's no such thing as being thought of as greedy. Your company asks customers for money, right? So don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel intimidated. Just go up and ask for it. What's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. The worst that can happen is you will be out of a job, but then have the strength in your skills to look for another one. That's number one. Second is be courteous, be polite while asking for it. Don't go and start crying or something like that. Hey, I want more, right? Be courteous, be polite, be professional.
Yeah.
And thirdly, back it up with work. So, give them a reason to justify. Like maybe your manager really wants to give you a raise, but he has to justify it to his manager that, hey man, this guy has really done great work. He has delivered this X, Y, Z in the past year. He has achieved X, Y, Z, whatever. And maybe like even if the manager does want to give you a raise, he has to justify it internally to the HR, to his manager, to whatever, to leadership. So maybe you have to justify it to your manager, maybe your manager has to justify it to someone else, but have some justification for why you deserve that raise. So put in the work and then ask for it. If you put in the work and don't ask for it, the company is going to be pretty happy to let you work at your current compensation for as long as you are not asking for it. So go ahead and ask for it as well. I
So
hope that.
a lot of companies already have like an appraisal happening at the end of the year, probably for everyone. So is it advisable to ask for a raise like mid-year, or is
Absolutely, absolutely it is. The appraisal process is like, there are great companies I'm sure out there, and I'm gonna only speak to around 80% of them. Appraisal process is sort of to placate the crowd that, hey, yeah, you are getting a raise. It's like 5%, 6%, 8%, 9%. And once you look at inflation, right, if you're getting anything less than 5%, you're essentially getting a pay cut, right? Everything's getting more expensive year on year. That's what inflation is. So appraisal barely covers that, in my opinion. And today, I don't know why that is, especially in the software domain. Companies have allocated more of their budget to hiring new people than retaining existing ones, right? Than to the appraisal process. So they do have the money, but they want to spend it elsewhere. And you're not like, if you just rely on the process that the company has put forward for you, you're doing yourself a disservice, and should absolutely go and ask for it. And of course your manager is gonna say, we have the appraisal cycle coming up in October and all, and whatever. If they're not ready to budge from that appraisal cycle, if they're not ready to recognize that you have gone over and beyond in your work, and they are at a significant risk of losing you as a good employee, then that company is already dysfunctional. And they should have an escape hatch. They shouldn't be beholden to the appraisal process only to, to retain their good employees. So yeah, if you are a good employee, if you do have the work, if you have something to show for it, absolutely go ahead and bypass that appraisal cycle. The appraisal cycle is just that you keep making the same amount of money every year, inflation adjusted. So I would say it's an absolute mess. If you are relying on the appraisal cycle, please don't, unless you are a great company, unless yours is a great company who gives appraisals like 15%, 20%, or maybe they give back the profits that they made, something like that. Yeah.
Got it.
So
Yeah, even like I've always thought like the system is kind of broken in that this sense. Like
yeah,
companies generally offer like a higher pay to external hires and not
yeah,
for
yeah,
retaining people already within the
yeah,
company. Yeah.
absolutely. So go ahead, ask for
Also,
it, appraisal cycle, bypass it, man. Go ahead. Yeah. You should.
what advice would you share with your developer friends when they ask you how to get a kick-ass job like yours?
First is, keep learning, keep working, enjoy software engineering, right? So if you enjoy software engineering, you're gonna put in time outside of work to maybe write a blog post, to maybe make a hobby project, and maybe talk to people around you. If you like your work, you're gonna do that. And secondly is, yes, talk to people. There's a lot of people who are open to talking, like we are doing right now, right? Who would be, if you're sharing your, good technical insights with them, they would be open to hearing. Not everyone is. A lot of people are very busy with their own work and they don't have time for anything external. But there are a lot of people who are open to talking with you, and go out, network, and don't just talk empty. Have something to show for it, like maybe something like a blog post, or stuff like that's what I would say. And yeah, maybe coming back to the luck factor, which I don't really wanna, maybe at some point it does play a role. Like, when will an opportunity turn up? You never know that. Be ready for it. An opportunity might turn up. Be ready for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get ready for it.
When you talk about you know talking to other people, how has that look like for you? Like, what do you do to go out of your way to meet new people or make new
uh,
professional connections?
as a very great suggestion, the remote Indian community. First of all, I joined the remote Indian community, right? I searched for it, maybe stumbled across it somewhere, then followed it. Second of all, I saw a post by these two guys that they were conducting a podcast for remote software developers. I was like, yeah, hey, I am up for this, right? So that's what I mean by talking to people, is being up for things like this, maybe up for things like, an email exchange, without really a guarantee that this will turn out to be a job, right? It's just a technically stimulating, intellectually stimulating back and forth with someone, right? It did turn into a job, but it wasn't going to for the first 2 months. It was just, him sharing problems, me sharing maybe the solutions, me sharing problems from my domain, him sharing solutions or advice, stuff like that. So just be, open, be up for events, join communities, Slack communities, Discord communities, stuff like that. Maybe some interesting people would post something interesting that they are doing, get involved in that, stuff like that's what I mean by talking to people. Yeah.
Love this.
So like go back to when you were in college. How was your thinking on building a successful career? How has that evolved since then?
How has that evolved since then? I was not really a long-term thinker in college. I was like a very short-term thinker. I want money, I want to spend it here, there, right? So that was really my short-term thinking. And in the medium term, I wanted to work for a startup. That has not really changed over the course. I really enjoy working in a small team, delivering outsized impacts, like directly getting to talk with the customer, stuff like that, which is much more accessible and doable at a small startup. That thing has not really changed. One thing that has sort of changed over the past year has been my perspective towards funding. I used to consider funding like a great success for a startup, but now that I have joined Open Regulatory, which is totally bootstrapped, zero outside venture capital, this seems much better, really, so to speak. So only that has changed. Overall, would say I have been pretty. I had a pretty great perspective, nothing really to change, even when I was in college, and that has sort of stayed the same till now. Don't fix what's not broken.
You were really smart back in college.
I don't
Yeah.
know about that, but yeah, I
Like
was
I know for myself, I didn't
clear.
have this kind of clarity in my head in college. Like I didn't really know what's good for me, like a big company or a startup. Yeah. So I'd say you were
Uh,
smarter than me in college.
I had clarity, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Like this.
Yeah. Over
And
to you, Nitya.
yeah, again. So let's do a new section which is called Let's Talk Nerdy. So
of
here I'm
course.
gonna ask you for your resources, blogs, and all the other things that you enjoy in your spare time. So let's start
Love
with
it.
resources. You are an
Yes.
avid reader. You mentioned that a lot of times. You mentioned the book. Like, what blogs or books have you read recently, maybe in the last year or two, that have
Yeah.
been really impactful to you?
It's a habit of mine to keep checking Hacker News. That's a very great resource. Sometimes they post programming stuff, sometimes they post general news, sometimes philosophy. Right now, AI is taking over, and the discussion and the articles on Hacker News are really technically one level above everything, all other communities. Other than that, I follow some programming communities on Reddit. Everything from programmer humor to Rails, Ruby on Rails, stuff like that. The technologies that I work with. I am honestly trying to find some good blogs. I'm not happy with anything. I'm exploring for a short time there. I was looking at daily.dev, but the technical difficulty of the articles is geared towards way more towards the beginners. I have a bunch of newsletters subscribed both for Ruby on Rails and then productivity and stuff like that. So Ruby Weekly is a great newsletter, but whatever technology you are working with, just Google newsletters for that technology, and I'm sure you will find great resources for that. In terms of books, I read, again, it's gonna differ from technology to technology a lot. I read Sandy Metz is a great programmer, really. She's one of the programmers I aspire to reach the level of, right? She has written a book called Practical Object Oriented Design in Ruby. I've read that one. So basically, you're gonna find some prolific thinkers and great people in your domain who have written books. You can go ahead and read them. For me, that's Sandy Metz. There was another woman, I think Rachel by the Bay or something like that, who also has great blog on really the fundamentals of internet. And like I remember her article on DNS was great. Sort of forgot the name, but maybe I can Google a little bit and find it. Yeah, yeah. You can basically that's it. Other than Hacker News, I don't have a habitual blog that I go back to. Nothing high quality. Daily.dev didn't scratch that itch. And yeah. I'm also
Maybe
part of
DHS newsletter.
yeah, I follow DHH on LinkedIn and read all of his LinkedIn posts. I am also part of some Slack communities which are geared towards programming and Ruby on Rails. So those sometimes connect me to like great people who are very good. So, yeah,
Yeah,
for Ruby on Rails, there's a great one called Ruby on Rails link. And if I'm allowed to get a little little Rails specific, for
yeah,
example,
please.
For example, I connected with this guy called Joe Mazzilotti, who is a great teacher in the Rails sphere. He has written a gem of his own. He has given talks on conferences, right? So you're going to find these communities are much more accessible, right? People are much more willing to talk than you would believe from their public personas. And yeah, just you can go ahead and join Slack communities, Google it for your technology. If you're on Ruby on Rails, I can invite you to Ruby on Rails link. Just shoot me a message and I'll forward the invitation. But go ahead, join those communities, and like you're gonna get those resources straight from the horse's mouth. The people who write and get published on websites like Hacker News and daily.dev and stuff like that, and connect with them right over. Internet is amazing. Yeah.
This is, yeah, joining communities and the internet is amazing. I feel
Yeah.
like you made like really great use of the internet. So you're obviously from India, and you right now you're in a small town
Yeah.
in a state of India. So
Yeah,
that even we haven't heard of. So
yeah,
it's really crazy because you are able to use the internet to just have an outsized impact. Like what
yeah.
people 10 years or it was
Yeah,
impossible,
absolutely.
and
It
now
was,
you're
it
like,
was unheard
yeah,
of and impossible. Yeah. I work for a company in Germany and I can go all over India and outside India and it's really crazy. Yeah. I feel very fortunate. I feel very grateful and thankful for the kind of opportunities that I have had. And I'm sure as our human civilization progresses, future generations are going to have even greater opportunities. But right now I'm thankful for what I have. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, what tools do you use and love at work? Like, it can be big tool, small tool. What do you love?
Right now, I was using VS Code and absolutely loved it, but I am always on the lookout for what can be done better. Right. So just a couple of days ago, I downloaded JetBrains RubyMine IDE. I'm still on the trial period. It's sort of okay. I'm in the evaluation phase of it. I'm always on the lookout for what can be done better. One thing I absolutely love is the terminal. Right. A lot of things I get done in the terminal. For example, I like to do my all my get commands on the terminal because I believe it's truer to the source, so to speak. Although there's a lot of graphical interfaces, but I've never really used a graphical interface. I feel very comfortable on a terminal user interface. That's one tool. Although I have never used Vim or Emacs, that's a little bit too crazy even for me. I have seen people use Emacs, but those are like real pros out there. I'm gonna stick to my VS Code and my Ruby mine. Thank you very much. One tool that I really love and I don't think a lot of people know about is Anki, spaced memory repetition software. It basically allows you to remember anything by hacking into how the human brain works. So once we learn something, we forget it. If we learn it again, we forget it, but this time a little bit later, we remember it for a little longer. So it has sort of this algorithm where it reminds you to learn that thing again at a specific interval. And this is called spaced repetition. And this interval keeps getting larger. And by hacking into this sort of thing, by hacking into this property of your brain, you can learn an amazing amount of stuff. Anki is free, open source. I use it daily. That's one tool I really love.
Is it a mobile app?
I There is a mobile app. I mainly use it on my laptop because I use it, for example, while I'm downloading something for work. Maybe I'm downloading a database dump and it's gonna take like 5 minutes. So that 5 minutes I just dedicate to Anki. There's a mobile app though, yes, there is. I just prefer
Okay.
the desktop version, but there's a
And what do you
mobile app.
learn? What do you use at work?
Everything, man. I learn a lot of professional development stuff. For example, anything I read, if it feels worth remembering, I just input it into Anki, and I basically rest
For
assured
example,
that I'm
like
gonna remember
new
it forever.
documentation. Like, is it
New
documentation stuff?
documentation, yes. No
Yeah.
documentation, but you got to be careful because you don't want to overload your brain
Yeah.
with something that might change in the next version of the documentation, and then there's no point of remembering it forever. So only remember stuff which is gonna stay, which is not gonna change. So yeah, documentation, but with the caveat that it's gonna be sort of semi-permanent. Just as an example, I know the capital of every country in the world. I know the flag. Yeah, I know the flag of every country in the world. And
You
right
really mean
now,
every country,
the flags are a little bit more difficult. Capitals, yeah,
but the capital.
capitals
That
are
is
sort of
easy.
easy. Yeah, flag, I know like 80% of the countries. Some can get confusing, right? For example, if you show me the flag of Poland and Indonesia, I'm gonna be like, hey man, this is probably Poland or Indonesia, but I don't exactly know which one because they have a slight color difference. Same with Romania and Chad, very similar flags, but I know like 80%. Other than that, right now I'm trying to learn the geography of every country. Like, right, if you show me a country without the name on the world map and ask me what that is, I should be able to tell you, including those in Africa or
Wow.
South America or whatever. And this is not really crazy. This is not really a smart thing. It just Anki makes it really easy, right? It's not really that
Oh.
difficult if you have the right tool for the job. So Anki, I'm trying to learn German. This is sort of an experiment. So to see how Anki fares into language learning, I don't know if it's that good. I'm just experimenting with it. Other than that, I know a lot of things about, for example, Ruby, Ruby on Rails, Java, Spring Boot. Even though I have left my previous job from Java, I still remember a lot of stuff of the technology just because I have input a lot of that into Anki and it won't let me forget it. It'll keep reminding me from time to time, making me review it. what else? For example, I know like prime ministers of India and just general knowledge like that and stuff like that. And
This is
Anki
the
makes it
craziest
really
thing that
easy.
I've heard on the podcast till
Oh,
now.
really? No, like just look up
What's the
Anki.
capital of Zambia?
Zambia, Lukasa.
Wow. Okay. You have passed the test. This is crazy.
Yeah, that was a difficult one actually. This one I don't have in my Anki card. I have to add it, I think. I knew it nonetheless, but I don't have a card for this. Yeah.
Oh my God. I like the way I generated was I typed random country generator and a website showed up and it was randomly
Oh,
generating a country.
oh, wow.
This is
Even
okay.
I have one. What's the capital of Cameroon?
Cameroon Yaoundé, right?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, this one I have a card for, so this was a little easier, yeah.
Wow. I have to. Okay, you have sold me on the Anki. I have
Yeah,
heard
man,
of
it's
stage
crazy. It's
recession
crazy.
before, but seeing
Oh,
it in front of my eyes,
yeah,
I'm sold.
it's not really difficult, right? The results do sound crazy to the layperson, but it's not even that much effort, like 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes a day. And I sort of use it if I'm waiting for something. For example, I have sent my colleague a text message or whatever, and I'm waiting for the reply, and it's maybe gonna take 5 minutes because they're busy with something. Just I go and review my Anki stuff. It doesn't even take that long.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
normal person just scrolls through their Instagram feed in those 10 minutes and then you
Honestly,
are
I do
doing
that too.
Anki. Yeah.
Honestly, I do that too. Yeah. And I'm a really bad chess addict. So more than Instagram, I just fire up chess on my phone and play it, and I might lose like an hour or even more. So it's not like I'm saying I'm great and I'm so productive and that. It's just that along with Instagram and chess, I also do Anki. But I do lose a lot of my life to these, small addictions.
Love this. This is, yeah, really the craziest thing that I've heard on this podcast. Thank you so much for
Wow.
talking about Anki.
Yeah, I wrote a blog post about it a while ago, like Anki as a learning superpower. To our viewers, please go check it out. Give my blog some readership. It has currently
We'll,
like
we'll
close to
link to it.
zero. Yeah, uh,
Yeah.
but mainly because I write
Maybe
for my own
you,
pleasure and development. Yeah.
yeah.
And if you want to write for people to read, I have found that the more basic and the more bare, like the more beginner level you get, the more readership you're gonna get. But that's not really my style. I write mainly for myself, and it's okay for me to be a little bit technical or to be maybe a little bit controversial or something like that, because it's just I really don't care about the views. I care about expressing my thoughts and improving how I write. So
Yeah, I'm 100% with you with that. I have like I started writing by just trying to like my
Mhm.
tool being sharing my thoughts, but then I fell into
Mhm.
the trap of looking at the numbers and trying to optimize the numbers. And
uh
4 years later, I realized that okay, I made a mistake, and it just sucked all the joy out of writing. So now I'm getting
yeah.
back to writing just for myself.
Yeah, I did that with my Twitter. I started out with just, putting my thoughts out there, and they were a little bit high level. And then I started caring about numbers and followers and stuff like that. And while experimenting, I realized that the more basic I get and the more beginner level I get, the more followers I'm gonna get. And no hate to beginners at all, right? Of course, like it's gonna be a pyramid. There's gonna be only going to be a few experts, a lot of beginners. So if you gear your content towards beginners, you're gonna have more followers, but it didn't feel authentic to me. So now I've stopped being, that active on Twitter. But that was an experiment that I did. I iterated and experimented with myself, and then I found out that the more you gear your content, the more basic you make it, the more readership it's gonna get.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I would love to actually read your blog. I'll find it out. Send me the link, and we'll also link to it in the show
Absolutely,
notes.
yeah. Absolutely, will do. Especially the Anki article. I think that was one of my more passionate articles in recent times, because it is my daily habit and I really love it. It has given me great, and these knowing flags and countries and all that. That's just, the bells and whistles. Doesn't really matter. What matters is it helps me with my career. right?
Hmm.
It helps me remember technologies, it helps me learn things really fast. And even though right now I'm not working with React, but I know a lot of things about React because when I was learning React, I put a lot of that stuff into Anki, and it's not gonna let me forget.
Like
So
what?
now a lot of hooks, right? There's a lot of, for example, when I was learning React, this new thing had come out, which was like hook driven architecture for React. Earlier, it was using props or like stuff like that. So I have a lot of hooks and then a lot of functions, a lot of Redux stuff as well. How it works, what are reducers, what's the store, what's the dispatch function, what's the thunk function, things like that. Yeah, it can get a little technical because of course it can. Of course, it's gonna.
This is the yeah, this is the let's get nerdy section. So
Oh,
it's
right. Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
nerdy
So
school in this
that's what
section.
it helped me the most with my career, to be very honest. Yeah.
Love this. This is yeah, and we're gonna have a whole different like short video on using Anki as a developer now.
Awesome, man. Looking forward to it already.
No, it's been a fantastic conversation so far, Saurabh. Before we end the call, is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with? Anything to help them, like any final thoughts?
Any final thoughts? Can I speak about the current state of the industry, software
Please.
industry? So
Yeah.
around an year ago, it was sort of far easier to get a remote job than it is now. I won't even say year ago, even more than that, more than 1.5 years ago. But don't fret. And even if you are looking forward, you want to get into the remote job industry, it will always help to to be sort of more experienced. So maybe in the short term, you until the market picks back up again, really it's a little bit out of our controls, right? And that's what we got to roll with. At least it's not as bad as the 2000, right, when the dot-com bubble burst and a lot of people were left jobless. Current market is slightly better than that, but it's still very difficult. And do whatever you got to do to get through this difficult market and to the greener pastures. I totally believe that economy goes boom bust, and there's gonna be a boom again. Right now we are in the bust cycle. Just wait for the boom cycle and we are gonna be golden. But don't just passively wait for it. Keep working on yourself. Get ready for the opportunities, right? Get dressed, put on your tie, put on your suit, work on yourself, read, get, speak to people who are technically amazing, stuff like that. Get ready for an opportunity right now. I know we are in a bus cycle and good things are hard to come by, but it's gonna flip around. The market is gonna pick back up again. And if at that point you start preparing and you have lost like the past 6 7 months to just fretting and being sad over the sad state of affairs, that's not gonna help. So, work on it and be optimistic about a better future. Yeah.
Amazing note to end the interview on. Thank you so much for coming on
Thank
the podcast and sharing your wisdom with us, Saurabh. It has been
Thank you
such a
so
delight to
much
have
for
you here.
having me. This was really fun. I have never done this before, but this was amazing. And I hope I was entertaining and instructive
It was more
and
than entertaining, yeah.
educative. Thank you very much.